My husband treated me badly and threw me out with our baby. But then, I made him pay. What he did shattered me. But one moment, one decision, changed everything. I went from broken to unstoppable. What he thought would ruin me became the very thing that destroyed him. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. And please, don't forget to support us by subscribing, liking, and sharing this story with someone you care about. It means more than you know. From the start, I knew something felt off, but I ignored it because love makes you blind. When I married him, everything felt like a dream. He was charming, attentive, and promised me forever. We had a small but beautiful wedding, and even though we didn't have much, I believed we had love. I thought that would be enough. After our daughter was born, everything changed. He stopped coming home early. He stopped asking how I was. He barely even looked at our baby. At first, I told myself he was tired, stressed from work, or overwhelmed with new responsibilities. But soon the excuses wore thin. He became cold, quiet, distant. One night, I tried to hold his hand while watching TV, and he flinched like I'd burned him. That was the first time I felt truly alone in the marriage. I started noticing small things, how he'd take his phone with him everywhere, how he'd lock it, how he'd change the passwords on our shared accounts. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. But then I saw it. Money was disappearing from our joint bank account, hundreds of dollars at a time. When I asked him, he got angry, said I was accusing him of things, said I was mooching off him and bleeding him dry. That's when he told me I wasn't contributing, that I was a burden, that I'd ruined his life with the baby. I remember standing there, holding our daughter, my heart racing. I asked him if he meant it. He didn't answer. He just told me to pack my things and leave. It was raining that night. I had nowhere to go. I begged him to let me stay until morning. He didn't care. He threw my bag onto the porch, told me I was lucky he didn't call the cops, and slammed the door behind me. As I gathered my things, soaked in rain, I ran upstairs one last time to grab a box of baby clothes. That's when I noticed something odd in the attic entrance, like it had been recently used. The ladder was still slightly down. My hands were shaking, but I pulled it all the way and climbed up. In the attic, under a sheet, I found a small locked chest. It wasn't dusty. It didn't belong to me. I had never seen it before. And inside was the first piece of the truth. But that part of the story comes next. I left the house with that folder pressed tight against my chest, my hands still shaking. I didn't cry, not right then. There was no space in my mind for tears, just a growing storm of questions that wouldn't stop spinning. Who was that woman? Who was that child? And more importantly, how long had this been going on? Back at my sister's place, I spread the documents out on the floor once the baby was asleep. There was an address listed on a preschool enrollment form, one I'd never seen before. I typed it into my phone and felt a sharp sting behind my eyes. It was barely 30 minutes away. I stayed up all night, searching everything I could. I searched his name. Nothing. I searched the woman's name. Still nothing. But when I searched the address, I found something that made my blood run cold. There was a property listing, an apartment rented under his middle name. The same man, different version. Same birthday, slightly changed spelling. Same smile in the contact photo. I felt sick. My husband, who said we could barely afford groceries, was renting another apartment. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right in front of me. So, I did what any woman pushed past her breaking point would do. I got dressed, pulled my hair into a neat ponytail, wore a hoodie and leggings. No makeup, no perfume. I looked like any other delivery worker. I drove to the address and waited. When I saw her, the woman from the photos, walk out of the building with a stroller, I knew I wasn't crazy. I walked up to the building and waited 10 minutes before knocking. I had nothing in my hands, no fake package, no clipboard, just a made-up name and a calm voice ready to pretend. She opened the door after a few seconds. Her eyes looked tired but kind. She held the door halfway open, probably wondering why a stranger was standing at her doorstep. "Hi," I said softly. "Sorry to bother you. I think I have the wrong unit. Is this where Mark lives?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You mean David?" she asked. "Yeah, this is his place. But he's not here right now." My stomach flipped. David. That was his actual first name. Mark was the middle name he used with me. I nodded slowly, my heart pounding so hard I thought she could hear it. "Oh," I said, playing dumb. "Sorry, I might have the wrong." But before I could finish, she looked me up and down. Her gaze paused on my left hand. She pointed. "You have the same ring," she said, almost casually. I looked down at my finger. Same ring. Same pattern. Same stone. She tilted her head and gave me the smallest smile. "You must be one of them." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even look angry. Just tired. And that scared me more than anything. After that moment at the door, when she said, "You must be one of them," I could have walked away. But something inside me, something quiet and sharp, told me not to. So I didn't. Instead, I became someone else. I gave her a fake name, told her I was from a community parenting group, and had just moved to the area. She didn't question it. She was too busy, too exhausted, and too used to being alone. Over the next few weeks, I visited her a few times. We went for short walks with the strollers. I brought her coffee. We talked about motherhood, sleep schedules, teething. She seemed grateful for the company. And slowly, bit by bit, she started opening up. His name wasn't Mark to her. It was David. He worked in logistics, she said. Traveled often. Usually 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. She said it like it was normal. Like it made sense. Like it was just part of being with a hardworking man. I didn't tell her he was also Jason to someone else, because that was the next discovery. One night, unable to sleep, I started digging deeper. Social media, public records, phone number. Piece by piece, I connected the dots. He had another address, this one in another town entirely, registered under a third variation of his name. Another woman, another child. He had 3 families. Each woman thought she was the only one. Each one raising a child alone, waiting for him to come back from one of his business trips. He rotated between them like clockwork, spinning lies so smoothly it was almost impressive. Almost. But what made my stomach turn wasn't just the betrayal. It was how easy it had been for him. How practiced he was. Like he'd been doing it for years. One afternoon, while helping the second woman clean out old boxes in her closet, she asked me to plug in her phone and play some music. I did. Her messages popped up on the screen without needing a password. She didn't think twice. But I did. There it was. His voice. A message he'd left just the night before. "Hey babe," he said in that fake soft tone I once thought was only mine. "You know, sometimes I wonder what happened to that first mistake I made. You remember her? The one with the baby and the temper." He laughed. "She probably still thinks I loved her." I stood there, barely breathing, my fingers cold, my ears ringing. He was talking about me. Not like a memory. Not like a person. Like a joke. A punchline. That was the moment something changed in me for good. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to ask why. I was going to end it. Properly. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my sister's apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to my daughter's soft breathing beside me. That voice message kept playing over and over in my head. That first mistake, she probably still thinks I loved her. I had given him everything, my trust, my body, my heart, and he had turned me into a ghost. A joke. A disposable part of a long-running scam. But now, I had something stronger than heartbreak. I had purpose. The next morning, I asked my sister for help. I didn't want to, but I had no choice. She'd already done more than enough for me, but when I told her I needed money, not for survival, but to fight, she didn't even hesitate. She loaned me what she could, just enough to make a move. I used the cash to book a consultation with a lawyer I found online. Not just any lawyer, this one specialized in fraud, financial deception, and asset tracing. Her name was Erin Price. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. She listened to my story without interruption, nodding slowly as I laid out everything I knew. When I was done, she leaned forward and said, "If even half of what you've told me is true, we can destroy him." And so we got to work. Within a week, she'd pulled everything she could get her hands on: his business filings, bank activity, phone records, even property ownership records. What we found was worse than I imagined. He had at least 3 identities registered in different states. Slight changes in spelling, different social security number. Enough to create separation, but not enough to raise red flags. His tax returns were a mess, underreported, inconsistent, and linked to shell companies I'd never heard of. And then came the real prize. A bank account in a private online bank based overseas, hidden in plain sight under one of his false names. The transactions were steady, large, and suspicious. Erin said it looked like unreported income, possibly from illegal side jobs or fake consulting gigs. It wasn't just betrayal. It was criminal. We printed everything, compiled it all in one thick folder. I didn't tell the other women. Not yet. I didn't want to tip him off. Not before we had him cornered. So we went to the authorities. Quietly. Anonymously. Erin knew the right channels. The Financial Crimes Unit. A discreet contact at the IRS. We submitted the paperwork under my initials only. I stayed behind the curtain, but I felt like I was finally in control of the stage. One afternoon, after a long day of digging, Erin slid a document across her desk toward me. It was a formal notice of action. A freeze on his overseas account had just been approved. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Do not contact him again. Don't answer his calls. Don't react to anything he says. We're going to bleed him dry." And I believed her. For the first time in months, I felt steady. I wasn't just the ex he discarded. I was the woman who was going to end him. Once the legal pieces were in motion, I turned my focus to the one thing he'd always been terrified of: exposure. For years, he thrived in the shadows, spinning lies, changing names, manipulating 3 women into believing they were his world. He moved through life like a magician, always distracting with one hand while hiding the truth with the other. But now I had the receipts. Literally, photos, emails, messages, documents, screenshots, birth certificates, bank statements. Every single thread of the tangled web he'd spun, I had gathered it all. And I was ready to show the world exactly who he. I didn't want revenge through violence or chaos. I wanted something better. I wanted consequences. So I began with the other women. I created 2 thick manila envelopes. Inside each one was a full report, their child's paternity paperwork, a list of overlapping dates he had spent with each of us, pictures of the other women and children, records of his fake names, and copies of the legal filings now underway. I didn't sign the letters. I just wrote, "You deserve the truth. He's done it to all of us." I mailed them anonymously. Then I printed a 3rd packet, this one for his employer. Inside, proof of false identities, fake tax records, suspicious bank transfers, and a timeline showing how he used company-funded work trips to visit his multiple families. I sent it straight to the HR department. The last batch of letters went to his family. He always told me his parents were dead. Turns out, they were very much alive. He just didn't want me to meet them. I found their address through a property search and sent them a copy of the files. No explanation. Just the evidence. And then I waited. It didn't take long. The second woman, Sophia, called me from a blocked number. Her voice was calm but full of fire. "Thank you," she said. "I thought I was crazy. You gave me proof." The third woman, Rachel, never called, but she filed her own child support claim within days of receiving the document. My lawyer caught wind of it through public filing. As for his job, 2 weeks after I mailed the envelope, his company launched an internal investigation. I know this because someone from the company, probably a disgruntled coworker, leaked it to the press. It started as a small piece on a local news site, a short headline buried among bigger stories. Tech consultant under review for alleged misuse of company funds. But by the end of the week, it was everywhere. Social media picked it up. True crime blogs started digging into the story. One viral thread connected the 3 families and posted clips of his public social media profiles under different. Then came the headline that made my phone buzz nonstop for 2 straight days. Local man juggled 3 families for profit. Ex-wife exposes elaborate double life. His face was right there, smirking in a cropped photo from our wedding day. He wasn't a mystery anymore. He was a spectacle, and the world was finally watching. After the media storm broke, I thought I'd unearthed every secret he had buried. But then Erin, my lawyer, called me one morning with a tone in her voice I hadn't heard before. Curious, almost amused. "You're going to want to hear this," she said. Apparently, while reviewing property records related to the fraud case, she noticed something strange about the deed to the house. The one he'd thrown me and our daughter out of that rainy night. The house where I folded baby clothes, nursed at 3 a.m., and thought I was building a future. It wasn't in his name. It never was. The house, it turned out, had been transferred into a trust years ago, my mother's trust. My mother had passed away when I was a teenager, and she left the house to me in her will. After we got married, he convinced me to put everything under joint management, saying it was just easier for taxes, for insurance, for long-term planning. I was young and overwhelmed. I signed whatever he gave me, but he never legally owned the house. And that's where it got worse. Much worse. Erin found forged signatures. On transfer papers. On mortgage documents. He had falsified my name to try and claim full ownership, so he could sell it behind my back. He had already listed the property with a shady real estate broker, trying to liquidate the home while I was too busy surviving to notice. Erin moved fast. She filed an emergency injunction that same day. The property was frozen, the sale blocked. When I saw the court stamp confirming the freeze, something in me clicked. This man wasn't just a liar. He was a thief. I didn't go to the house right away. I couldn't. It still felt like the ghost of something I once believed in. But when I did go back, it wasn't to take a walk down memory lane. It was to end something. I called him from a burner phone and told him the real estate sale had been blocked. I gave him an address, his old house, my name still on the mailbox, and said, "If you want to talk, meet me in the living room." One last time. He came. No smug smile this time. No loud voice. Just a hunched posture, sunken eyes, and the fake humility of a man who realizes the game is up. He started to talk, slow at first, then desperate, begging. He said he didn't mean for it to go this far, that he just needed to get ahead financially, that he still cared, somehow, about me and our daughter. He reached for my hand. I stepped back, and the whole time, my phone was recording, tucked in my pocket, camera on, audio clear, every word, every lie, every confession. He asked for mercy. I gave him none. "You didn't care when you locked that door behind me," I said. "Now I'm locking mine. and I walked out, this time for good. Change doesn't always arrive with warning. Sometimes it walks into a courtroom wearing a plain black robe and speaks only once, but when it does, it ends everything that came before. That morning, as I stood outside the courthouse holding my daughter's hand, I felt it, the shift. The weight wasn't gone, but it was lighter. The fear wasn't louder than the resolve anymore. This was the day everything changed. Inside the courtroom, the air was stiff and dry. The walls were pale, the lighting harsh, and every movement felt louder than it should. I sat beside Aaron, who was calm as ever, organizing papers while he, my ex, sat across the aisle in a suit 2 sizes too big, pretending to look confident. But his face betrayed him. His hands wouldn't stay still. His mouth twitched. He knew what was coming. The prosecution laid it all out. 3 aliases, 3 addresses, 3 women. One man rotating through them like a con artist working shifts. Every identity connected to a different fraud. The accounts, the forged paperwork, the business trips he took while abandoning his responsibilities as a father. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was criminal. But the moment everything truly turned wasn't about documents or legal jargon. It was human. Sophia, one of the other women, stood up to testify. She walked slowly to the stand. Not dramatic, not emotional, just steady. Her voice shook slightly at first, but then it found its strength. He lied to me, she said plainly. He told me I was his only one. He took my savings. He told me she nodded at me, was crazy. That she made it all up. Her eyes burned, not with anger but with clarity. I believed him, for too long, until she gave me the truth. No one said a word after she stepped down. No one needed to. Her words did more damage than any document could. His lawyer tried to downplay it all, called it family confusion, said he had trouble coping with responsibilities. But the judge wasn't interested in sympathy. She read from the evidence, pointed to the contradictions. She spoke slowly and clearly, as if making sure he couldn't pretend not to understand. You didn't stumble into this, she said. You built it. You sustained it. And you abandoned every person who trusted you. Then she turned to me. The court granted me full custody of my daughter. No visitation. No shared decisions. No contact. They awarded me legal control of all frozen assets, including the overseas accounts Aaron had tracked down and the house he tried to sell from under me. Every penny he'd hidden was now evidence, and mine to claim. As the judge finished speaking, he tried one last time to protest, but she didn't even raise her voice. She simply said, "You broke the law. And more importantly, you broke lives. You don't get to speak here." The bailiff stepped forward, placed him in handcuffs, and led him out of the courtroom. That's when it hit me. Change had finally arrived. And this time, it didn't ask permission. It just ended him. After the verdict, everything moved fast. Court orders were processed. Accounts were unlocked. The money, what was left of it, was transferred into a new account under my name only. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had choices. Real ones. The funds weren't endless, but they were enough. Enough to start over without constantly choosing between formula or electricity. Enough to stop surviving and start living. The first thing I did was find a new home. Not some dark little apartment crammed with old memories and secondhand fears, but a place full of light. It had a small backyard with a cherry tree. My daughter loved it immediately. She ran through the empty rooms barefoot, giggling like she had no idea what we'd just come through, and I wanted to keep it that way. Next, I opened a college fund in her name. I didn't know what she'd want to be, a painter, a doctor, a dancer, maybe something I couldn't even imagine. But whatever it was, she wouldn't have to beg, borrow, or apologize to reach it. And then, I gave some of the money away. It wasn't some dramatic gesture. It was personal, quiet. I found 3 local women's shelters and made anonymous donations to each. One of them had taken my call late at night in my first week out, when I was too scared to say my name. Another helped my sister with diapers when she was struggling. These places mattered. They did real work, and I wanted to be part of that. But the most unexpected part of this whole journey wasn't about money at all. It was connection. Sophia reached out first. Then Rachel. We met at a small coffee shop one Saturday. No cameras, no drama, just 3 women with too many overlapping stories and not enough time to tell them all. We didn't cry. We didn't rant. We just talked. We made a decision that day. We started a private online group, a safe space, a network, a place where women could share stories, check names, raise red flags without shame. We called it One of Us, because that's what we had all been. And we weren't going to let anyone else go through it alone. Finally, after months of legal battles and healing, I returned to the house. Not as a wife, not as a victim, but as the rightful owner. The inside was still cold with his memory, but I stripped it clean, painted the walls, took out the cheap furniture he'd insisted on keeping, planted flowers out front, and then I did the one thing that made it truly mine. I changed the nameplate. Where it once said Mr. and Mrs. Carter, it now read. The home of Ava and Maya. Just 2 names. No lies. No man who thought we were disposable. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I stood on that porch with a key in my hand and peace in my chest. Not revenge. Not victory. Just a beginning. Our beginning. It always comes back to that night. The rain hitting my skin. My daughter crying in my arms. The porch light flickering behind him as he stood in the doorway, holding the door open just wide enough to toss my bag out. I remember begging. Just for the night. Just until the rain stopped. He looked me straight in the eyes and laughed. Like I was pathetic. Like I was the problem. Like throwing out the mother of his child was something funny. Then he shut the door. Just like that. That sound, the metal click of the lock, echoed in my chest for weeks. I thought that would be the moment I'd never forget. But then, I watched him walk out of that courtroom in handcuffs. No porch light. No control. No smile. Just a man surrounded by silence, his face pale, his eyes darting, the weight of exposure finally dragging him down. People watched. Whispers followed. No one called him charming anymore. No one laughed. That's the moment I'll remember. Not because I needed revenge, but because it was real. Because he knew the truth now. That the woman he threw away was the one who ended it all. I was nothing to him. But now he's nothing because of me. Do you think he got what he deserved? Or do you believe people like him ever really change? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on it. And if stories like this keep you hooked, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. Trust me, the next one might just be even crazier.